So, Resurrection is a film by director B. John, and I just I these are the type of films that I love so much because this film gave me something that I don't experience too often, but I always cherish it when I feel it, which is that if I watch a film and I watch it in the theater, I come out of the theater being like, I feel like I've been to another planet. Like I don't recognize anything. Like I feel like I've been somewhere else entirely. Like I've experienced an entirely different like dimension from my own, and I forgot about everything in life. And I think that's what a lot of people want to feel when they go to the theater. They want to just lose themselves in the screen. And a few films have done that for me. Films like Princess Mononoke and Blade Runner have done that for me, and Resurrection also joins that list because I think Bijan really like swung for the fences with this type of film because I think it's a very ambitious film, and I think it could go awry so easily and become like too simplistic for what it wants to do. So the premise of this film, or at least the framing device they have, is that it's the future where all of humanity is kind of like turned away from dreams in exchange for longevity. And I think there's something like weirdly reflective about that, where a lot of people have kind of like thrown away their dreams just for the chance to live, which I think, it's it's easy to see like the allegory there, but there's much more to the film than that. Like in particular, the only types of people who who can still dream are called like the Delerants. So one of them is dying. Like one of the few who can dream is dying and is taken in by this one woman. She grants him a peaceful death by essentially installing a camera or like a film projector inside of his body so that he can experience all these different aspects of the world and these different sensations through the magic of cinema. Which she pretty much says at one point. She's trying to connect with this dying person through the language of movies. And it's it's weirdly meta when you see the film in that context, because it feels like, she's doing this for us. Like she's giving us something more to feel in movies right before like our mortality kicks in, and that's it for us. So just give us something more to go on. So we get this anthology of different stories here that are all that are all centered around the different sensations relating to the Buddha. So you have aspects of taste, you have aspects of touch and smell, and just all these different sensations that come across through all these different stories, which are kind of like strung across the 20th century that are told with different characters. And they are radically different stories from one another. Like at one point, there's a very surreal tale of a thief who connects with the spirit of bitterness, who's just like he's alone. It's just like he's alone in just like this desolate environment, and bites into like this stone, or just he just has this conversation with a spirit who who's like trying to grapple with what it means to be alive, and what purpose there is to existence. And the spirit is very like he doesn't like speaking like riddles so much. He's just kind of like very, very blunt, and he has like this very eccentric nature to him, even though he's not very very open about what he's trying to talk about here. Then you have stuff like there's one story involving smell that involves a con artist who's trying to convince people that like this little girl is very magical, and that she can harness this ability to smell cards to like pull off these incredible card tricks that a lot of people in this type of setting actually value. And it's a little bit it was kind of interesting. It was very, very understated here. I love how like as opposed to the story about talking with the spirit of bitterness, where it was very surreal and had like all these like dreamy transitions. The story about this con artist teaching magic to this little girl felt like it was like a very understated version of something like Paper Moon, where it's like the two of them connect, but on like this very quiet, very meaningful level where like there's always like danger and violence just around the corner. And then there's the closer here, I think, is like a one of like the best entries, which is about it takes place in a port city in 1999 on the last day of the century, and it involves this basically like this hoodlum called Apollo who hooks up with this vampire singer and tries to like hook up with her at a karaoke bar, and he runs into some trouble with some other vampires, and some violence ensues, and they try to like fight back and like make their romance work, even when it feels like their lives are going to end by the time that this night is over. And it's way different than the other entries, just because, like, for one, there's amazing color. There are scenes where it's just like bathed in red. There's great POV shots where we just like follow the vampire singer through this town with like this very long shot, and there's like we're seeing like the POV of someone who's like right behind her and following her. And then you have like these like karaoke song numbers, which are they're kind of interesting. And then you have scenes where like people get shot through the hand, and the camera just kind of like follows them all around the room. And there are so many different styles and techniques here, and I think it works just because the film never becomes so simple with like the anthology of stories that it's trying to stress here. And throughout it, there's always this reminder that the derelict who's there's always this reminder that the derelict is aware that he is dying, because in between the stories, like the only thing that we have kind of as a transition is just watching wax melt. So it's just kind of this reminder that you're experiencing this story, and you get to live with these characters, you get to experience every sensation that they have, but you're not immortal here. You're going to die. That's the sad truth here. It's like you are not going to live forever, but through the magic of movies, you can experience more. And that's ultimately what I love so much about film, is that it has this aspect of empathy where you can place yourself in the shoes of others and become someone else and see something entirely different in this world. And just exploring all the different like turmoils and passions and fun and romance and this existential dread. You get to experience all of that, and to have that be like the last thing that this that this dreamer gets to see right before he dies, I think is just such a beautiful aspect, especially with the like the style they use for like the future scenes that bookend this film of the dreamer experiencing cinema for the last time, is all framed in like in a silent movie style. And what I mean by that is not that it's like that they use kind of like the black and white or the flickering nature. It's that they kind of rely a little bit on how they would use like cards for dialogue there. So it has that essence of a silent movie, but it's not like straight up just an homage to like how silent movies were shot in every aspect, which I guess could be said for a lot of what Begon is doing here, because I think he's really like trying to take all the elements of cinema here and try to like juggle them and say like, okay, let's do this, and let's see if we can explore more about what it means to be human through this style and these types of characters. Like one, I almost entirely forgot to mention the first story that starts all this off, which is a detective story that relies on hearing, that involves a theremin and someone getting stabbed in the ear. And even that story, you would think that would be like a little bit more gritty, but it's still very like very dreamy. Like you feel like you're drifting in and out of this story with like the way that like the camera kind of wanders off and transitions to different scenes, and then you're almost kind of like lulled into like this kind of like lullaby by the theremin, and even the scenes where like where someone gets stabbed in the ear, it still kind of feels like, oh, what? Like that's kind of shocking, but it's like, with everything that's being set up here, you kind of feel like anything can happen, and that these stories can take any route, and just they're beautifully shot, just like I said, a variety of styles here, and I do really like that the colors and the POV shots of the last story, but all the stories in general just look beautiful. To different degrees, they use different colors, they use different lighting techniques. They have much different characters, despite pretty much all the characters, the primary characters being played by Jackson Yee, who really does a good job here. I love just watching him kind of melt into all these different roles here, and I think for one, it's a great showcase of his range. But I think it never really distracts you. It never, even like, there's also a returning character played by Shu Kui in a lot of these stories, but it never quite felt like like something like Kinds of Kindness, where you recognize all the actors and you're just kind of watching them put on a different story and a different play. It always felt like these stories were unique, and that they weren't just trying to stress the same theme or the same style or the same character quirks. Like, it was always something different and always trying to be all encompassing of what it means to be human, and what it means to live, and what it means to, appreciate all the different sensations that we have in our lives. Now, what made me love this film the most was the ending. Because when you get to the ending, there's a scene where we see the title card that says "The End," but then like kind of like the camera pulls back and it showcases that the title card for "The End" is being shown in a movie theater with all these different people watching, and you kind of watch as time passes really quickly, and you see the different people kind of like fade out of there the same way that, like people die and they just kind of go away, while you watch the theater just sit there and decay as the projector keeps playing, and just sitting there and seeing that moment, just seeing, your own mortality like shown back at you, the fact that you're going to be sitting here watching this movie and then one day you're not, and that even this theater that you're in, it might not be here. It might exist in some form, but it might get torn down. Like, think how many theaters have like shut down in your lifetime. Think of where you've been, where you've sat, and they are no longer there, and how it's kind of like that. It has that similar sensation to how we exist in life. How, we're here one day, and then the other day we're not, and it really got to me, and it made me like really question existence on a level that just, and I know this is going to sound corny, but it felt transcendent. It did. It took me out of my body, and it made me feel like I was experiencing something more to life, and appreciating all the different sensations, just before the clock winds down, which, it's very much an appropriate title for this film, of a resurrection, where, we feel like we're experiencing something different, like we're being born again through something in our lives that makes us feel alive. But in essence, we're all just kind of melting down, kind of like wax on a candle. So it's just like for the dreamer who's experiencing these different visions and lifetimes, like for him, it's probably very much, it feels like a resurrection, like he's becoming someone else, like he's dying and being born again in so many different forms, even though he's really not. He is essentially dying, but getting to experience something with it, which I think is just life in general. We go through life, a lot of people just look at it as, like you're born, life sucks, and then you die. But before you get to that moment where you die, the most fulfilling aspect is just being able to experience all the different aspects of life, and not in a way it's just we're just like, oh, you have to experience, like the joy of children, or getting married, or buying a house, or any like superficial commonalities that usually come with with like growing up and what that entails. It's more just about the sensations, that feeling where you can smell something lovely, or taste something bitter, or hear something eerie, or lose your hearing, or taste something awful, or taste something passionate, or just you know sharing a kiss with someone, just anything that makes you feel alive. And I think that's what made me love Resurrection so much, is that it's a film that makes you feel alive. It makes you feel in there and aware of that moment of your place in this world. And just on an existential level, I just love that feeling that it gave me. So yeah, Resurrection is easily my favorite film from last year.